Alright, in this Gamedev session, I am going to be working on my Pikmin Prototype. I'm going to be adding Nectar and the ability for my Pikmin to advance in maturity straight to flower when they drink Nectar. And if there's time, maybe adding eggs or functionality to the eggs so that they can be attacked and broken and Nectar can come out of them. So I've already got a few things already. I've got a Nectar blob already in the world, and it has a script on it, but that script doesn't do anything. What I need to go ahead and do is add a new state to my Pikmin state controller, and I believe I put that in here, for drinking the nectar, because that is a distinct state that can only be entered and exited one way. It can only be entered by going to a nectar blob, and it can only be exited once the Pikmin finishes drinking. The only thing that could possibly interrupt it is the Pikmin dying. And that's the case for basically every state, as you can see. Practically every state leads to this dead state right here, because the Pikmin can die in basically every state. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new substate, or no, create a state. I guess I'll just call it drinking. So whenever I have a new state that I've added, I need to find my Pikmin script and find the enumeration for the Pikmin states, as well as the Pikmin's transitions. So this new state will be called drinking, and I use the enumeration to keep track of state in scripts. And I've got a conversion process somewhere that converts it between the enumeration and the actual string used in the animation system. And the transitions are the conditions that I use for the transitions to happen. These enumeration values are given directly to the animation system as integers for the conditions for state transitions. It's using a parameter called transition that's just an integer, and the value that I test for quality corresponds to one of these enumeration values. And so I suppose the newest transition will probably be called, let's say, reach nectar. Because as soon as the Pikmin actually reaches a nectar blob, it will begin drinking. So, where is the following leader state? Because I noticed that they only ever start drinking from the blob if they are currently in the process of following the leader, or walking, I guess. So I can go ahead and make a transition to that. And what I do is I disable exit time, and I set its duration to 0. And for the conditions, I check if transition is equal to a certain value. And the value is really easy to determine. I can just hover over it, and it needs to be 24. So that transition integer will be set to 24 for a leaf or bud Pikmin if it is overlapping a nectar. First, I need to go ahead and set up the connection from drinking to dead, and I'm kind of running out of space to put new states. I guess I could put it right here, I suppose, and make a new transition here. And all of these use transition 21, which I'm pretty sure is die. Yep. So make a new one. Again, no exit time, 0 duration, and the condition is that it must equal 21. Yep, 21. And so drinking, from the drinking state, the Pikmin could actually enter several possible states, I think. The normal condition is to go back to following the leader, but if they're not close enough, they could probably become idle. So those are both options that I have to consider. And where is idle? Idle's all the way down there. So I might consider moving this state just a little bit. I'm trying to keep the lines from overlapping. Just a stylistic choice, I guess. So those would each have to be their own transitions. So let's just first deal with the following leader transition. That one's a new one. Probably call it finish drinking. And that one will have a number of 25. So, okay, now it's recompiling since I decided to save it. I'll make sure that the condition for that one is that the transition equals 25, no exit time, it's instant. Okay, so that's the default case. And I think just for simplicity, I'm going to keep it that way for now. So now, all I have to do is actually start using this state machine. It's already in use, but I need to use this new state. And I'm going to do that with the script I have just created just before this recording. Where did I put it? I think I put it in tasks. That would be the Nectar script, which I already have open, right? So I think the way I'm going to do this is I will have a list of all the nectars that are in the level, and I think that will be a static array that will be on the Nectar script. Probably a private static nectar array. And I guess that will be all nectars. And I need to make sure to initialize it. Don't I? Actually, no, I would need a list, since it would be dynamically added to and removed from, well, at any possible rate. Because eggs could be spawned in and broken at any time. And I don't think I'm going to do grass. They did the nectar grass in the first two games, but I don't remember actually seeing any in Pikmin 3. I personally prefer the eggs anyway. So, in the awake function, all nectars, I will add the current instance to all nectars, but I also have to remember to remove it on destroy with this event function. It's basically the same, all nectars.remove this. So that ensures that it gets added to the list as soon as the script is loaded and removed as soon as it is unloaded. So that would put all of the nectars in the scene into this list. So that would mean I now, on the Pikmin script, on each Pikmin script, I guess I'm going to run through all of the nectars, I guess every frame, or every frame that we're following the leader, and look for a nectar. So let me find the function real quick. Here we go. Do state control. This is the big switch statement with all of the states that have behaviors. So the one I am interested in is following leader. So we'd want to be in this if not grabbed right here. And I suppose I'll just put it right here. I'll go ahead and loop through all of the nectar blobs, which is currently in a private static list. So I guess I'll need an accessor real quick. I've actually decided that I'll use a get closest nectar accessor that will return the closest nectar. And that probably also means I guess I'll return null if there isn't a nectar close enough to be drank by the Pikmin, but I'll actually return a nectar if it's within distance to be drank by the Pikmin. Alright, since this is a static method, but the distance would be on the prefab, which is an instance, I've decided to go ahead and also make a static field that has the drink distance, but it's static. And it'll be assigned by, well, whatever instance loads. And I decided to do this because since they're all going to use the same prefab, and by that logic, there wouldn't be any that would have a different drink distance, and I would have no reason to make any have different drink distances. The way I see it, it should be fine to do this. And, okay. I'm realizing that if we only want one nectar, and we have the stipulation that the nectar has to be within drink distance, I imagine that as soon as this function finds a nectar that's close enough to be drank, it should already go ahead and give that nectar back. So I could just end the loop as soon as we find one, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't really see a flaw with this logic yet. I could be missing something really obvious. And since there's the possibility that this part of the control flow could be reached if there are none close enough, then it will return null. So I have this method right here that the Pikmin can call. And I guess they would call it, like I said, for every frame that they're following the leader. So I guess nectar will equal nectar since it's static. Get closest nectar to their current position. And so that should give us the nectar. And if that's not null, so it's as simple as if nectar, then we can go ahead and transition. So that's state machine dot transition. I have to pass the animator for the function I made and the transition we want to transition. So that would be reach nectar is what I called it. So I'm not going to go much further than that. I'm just going to go ahead and test this. And so if I'm correct, the way to see whether or not this is working is any leaf Pikmin should just automatically stop at that nectar when they reach it and stop responding to any commands I give them. And that's a really simple thing to test. And I forgot to give it a distance. So I need to go to the prefabs, go to my Nectar prefab, and come up with a good distance. I think the radius is 1, so that seems like a good radius to me. Let's try it again, now that I've actually set the distance on the prefab. And let's bring some Pikmin over to it. So, yeah, okay. Pikmin that come into contact with it are stuck on the nectar and no longer follow me no matter what. They are not listening to me whatsoever, which is what I wanted. That means they're in that state, but just in case I have any doubts, I can just click on one of these Pikmin and actually find out for sure. So that would be this one, and if I check, they are in the drinking state. Yep, that's confirmed. So, in Pikmin 3, which is, in my opinion, the best implementation of Nectar, each Nectar blob can feed 10 Pikmin. So I wouldn't want any more Pikmin to latch onto this Nectar once it's empty. So on each Nectar, I want to go ahead and keep track of how much there is left. So I guess I would make that an integer, since it's, never fractional. It's always a whole number of Pikmin that can drink from it. And this is one of the harder parts, is coming up with names, at least for me. So I guess I'll call this drinks left. That seems pretty straightforward, and I'll go ahead and set it on the prefab so I don't forget. And that's always going to be 10. So each time a Pikmin goes to drink it, it needs to remove a drink. So I'll go ahead and make a method for that, just called drink. And it should be as simple as just decrementing the number of drinks left. And also, we could go ahead and create the stipulation that not only does a nectar have to be within distance, its number of drinks left has to be greater than 0. Alright, okay, that makes sense. This is an instance variable, not a static one. It would be a disaster if it was a static one, because then you'd only ever get 10 drinks ever, which would be terrible. So now, this should be testable by taking out some number of Pikmin that's greater than 10, and at some point I should stop having Pikmin actually grab onto that nectar. So here we go. Let's get some Pikmin on there. They're still going on there. It looks like they're still actually going on there, right? Yeah. Oh, of course, I forgot to call the drink function. I feel kind of silly. So that happens as soon as they reach it. Was I not just here? Okay, I was. So, actually, it's nectar.drink. Go ahead and drink the nectar as soon as a Pikmin touches it. Now, okay, now that I'm actually calling that method, it should be pretty simple. And it should work. So let's go ahead and test it. 15 Pikmin. Go over here. Alright, so far so good. These ones are not going on there. And it's, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5. I noticed that there are places in the matrix that are empty. And it is at this moment that I realize they should probably actually leave my party when this happens. So, okay, how do I want to accomplish this? I'm pretty sure it's just Pikmin Manager dot take Pikmin from squad, right? And that's the leader I'm currently following, which would have to be set if I'm following a leader. And I passed the this reference because I'm the Pikmin that wants to leave. So now they should actually leave my squad as soon as they hit a blob of nectar that they want to drink. So again, take out 15. This video is already 15 minutes. I'm going to try and keep this shorter. Okay, 7 with me now. They're now 5. Okay, that is how I wanted that to work. And whistling them does not bring them back because they are in the process of drinking. And it seems like drinking is one of the states that they will not respond to the whistle in. Which makes sense because they're drinking. Actually, can you whistle them off when they're drinking? I don't think you can. I'm pretty sure that process is completely irreversible. Alright, so I now have Pikmin grabbing onto the nectar, or, well, starting to drink it. I don't know why I'm saying grabbing. More like the nectar is grabbing them. So now, each Pikmin that is in the process of drinking the nectar, I guess would go through an animation, but I'm not doing animations yet. So for any Pikmin that starts drinking, I guess I'll make a drink method on the Pikmin itself too. And I guess I could go ahead and put it right here so that the Pikmin has its own state control. And like with most other methods that I've implemented like this, it will start with a float variable that indicates the time at which it started drinking. So I'll just call this drink time, and then set it to time.time as soon as this method is called. And I don't need to have something like a... Wait, why is it returning float? There we go. I don't think I need to do anything else or even have a boolean for drinking because it can determine whether or not it's drinking because that's a state. That's part of the enumerations. So that should be pretty simple. And I could go ahead and add that to the state control at the very bottom, I suppose. Add a case for state.drinking, right? Alright. So this one's pretty simple. We'd also need a drinking time field, so I'll go ahead and try and group that with all of the other ones. So okay, that would be drink duration, right? Yeah, makes sense. So go back to state control, which happens right... This is a really long script. Here we go. Happens right down here. So this is simple. We can subtract time.time, or subtract the time that we started drinking from the current time. And that gives us basically the amount of time we've been drinking, and as soon as that's greater or equal to the drink duration, we know that we're done. So I guess this is the moment that we'd want them to be flowered and to either start coming back to the leader or be idle. And I think in the actual animation, their maturity change happens, I'd say halfway through, because they drink, stick their head up, their maturity changes, and then they jump in the air and spin around, and then when they land back, they start coming back to you. But just for the sake of simplicity, and since I don't have animations, this will be the moment that the maturity changes. So that will be maturity, and I believe that's an enumeration, right? Yes, maturity.flower. I think I need to... Okay. Is it maturity change? Or actually, it'd be set maturity. I should not set the variable directly because there are other changes that need to be made, like to the model and stuff like that. So I need to call set maturity to flower. It's pretty simple. And this is the point where it would have to make the decision of whether or not to follow the leader or to be stuck. And I have code for this somewhere else. So that's distance to group. So when they... Okay. Where is that code? Let me find it. I believe this is it. Right here. We go ahead and find the closest leader. Well, actually, we find the active leader and then determine whether or not we are close enough to go to them, and that is find leader distance. So, okay, and the transitions we are using are return to leader. So, okay. And that transition is called finish task. But, okay, what are the transitions we have to choose from? We have none, call out, pluck, reach, and maybe dismiss. Actually, I think finished task is a good enough transition. It's like the name makes sense, that's for sure. So where were we? Right here. So return to leader if we are done with the nectar and we're close enough, or finish task if we're not, which gives us some states to put onto that state machine, or transitions actually, excuse me. So drinking, and this one would be return to leader. So what is that one? That one's 18. If it equals 18, we will return to following the leader, but if not, we will become idle. Again, try to make that not overlap. That's good enough. Actually, no, it's not good enough. Now it's close enough to good enough, I suppose. And what is the number for that one? That is 20. Again, condition that transition equals 20. No exit time, and it should be instantaneous. So that's the same for the other one, right? Yeah, and that one's 20. That one's 18. This looks good, so I suppose let's try it. I'll go ahead and get 15 Pikmin out and bring them to the nectar. 10 should be able to get a drink, whilst the other 5 will be left with... Oh, wait! How many times is this going to happen? I forgot to set the duration again. Okay. So, the duration, where did that end up placing in the script? I'm guessing it could be anywhere, actually. Just look for one that's 0, I suppose. Right here, drink duration. So, just from memory, I'm going to say 1.3 seconds. Kind of just mostly arbitrary, but again, I can tweak it as necessary. And I have separate scripts for the different Pikmin colors, which may be necessary, or at least more necessary in the future, but right now it's kind of redundant. But once they actually start having their own unique behavior, it might be worthwhile to have multiple scripts. So, okay, and the duration's about 1.3 seconds. Let's see how that feels. Okay, yeah. And the others cannot drink it. Alright, actually, how many? 1, 2, 3... No, I feel like we should have more that should be able to do that. So, let's throw some flowers. Oh, wait. I noticed that I cannot switch between the different maturities. That might be a task for another day, but I sure feel like that is way more than 5 leaves. Let's count. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is it really just... No, it's not. It's 5, 6, 7. So there are still some leaves that should be able to drink the nectar. Right? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, only 8 have actually turned into flowers. So let's look at the nectar, find out what's going on. Drinks left, 0. That is strange. I guess I'll try it again. Because if it's consistent, that's cool. What if it's not? It's just going to be even more of a headache. Let's just do one at a time. I can actually have another leader help me for this. Haven't used the multiple leaders very often. Alright. Just have one drink it, if it can hit it. And it's not coming to me. What is it doing, actually? Oh! It keeps continuing to drink it. Okay. That's right. I forgot that they should only ever try to drink it if they're actually leaves or buds. So that would be... Where is that? Here we go. If nectar... So before we even check that, if maturity is equal to, I suppose, maturity dot... Actually, if maturity is not equal to maturity dot flower, instead of having to check if it's equal to one or the other, and there's nectar to drink, okay, it was just a simple case of I forgot a situation under which they should not be able to do it. So this video is already 24 minutes, so I think I'm actually gonna call it here and make the other one into a different video. But since the next one would be actually implementing enemies, that seems like it might itself be a two-parter. So that's 5 that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it worked this time. Awesome. So actually, no, we're not done. That drop needs to shrink and then eventually disappear once there are none left. So how do I want to do that? I guess I could affect the scale of the blob, which I'm pretty sure is how it's normally done in the games. So that means I need to make a field for the transform. And I guess we'll call it model. And I guess this could be done in the update function. And we also need a default scale probably. Vector 3, default scale. Yeah, and in the update method, what I could do is I could set the local scale, not lossy scale. Model.local scale. Where is it? There we go. Could equal the default scale. That would be multiplied by the number of drinks left. So drinks left divided by 10 float. Alright? Yeah, that seems fine. And that sounds like it might be all there is to it. I mean, there'd probably be animations in the future, obviously. But I am leaving animations for later once I'm actually ready to put polish on it. So, actually, no, the model is the sphere. Why did I put the Shadowcaster? 2.2, 1.5, 2.2. Okay. 1.5. Alright, so now it should shrink as more Pikmin drink from it. So I'll go ahead and actually take out one at a time so I can see the scale change. Alright. So let's take out another 9. Alright. Actually, is there still a blob there? Because there's still one Pikmin that could drink. Oh, that's way too tiny. I don't think it actually affects the distance, but that's way too tiny. So I actually probably want a float for the minimum scale. So that's the default scale on each axis, but that's the minimum scale as a percentage of the original scale. So how would I do that? That would probably... So this right here gives me a number between 0 and 1. So I guess I would do an interpolation between... So at the maximum it would be 1 when it's 1. And at the minimum it would be the min scale. Correct? I think so. Then we can just go over to the prefab. It's almost 30 minutes, so let's do 0.5. Can't believe I forgot about an entire half of this mechanic. But I did. Alright. And that looks much better. And it's... Okay, that's the thing. Once it's actually empty, it will still be at that size. And I think instead of 0.5, maybe 0.4? So, actually, if under for whatever circumstances the drinks left is 0, then what we actually want to do is destroy this game object. So, and that will also remove it from the list of nectars. Again, I'd probably want to defer the deletion until after an animation is done. But I don't know how many times I've said already, animations come later. So, alright. There's still some that can drink. One more. If I could line it up. Alright. So that's really nifty. And the video is already 30 minutes long, so I'm going to leave the egg here for the next one or more Gamedev sessions. If you've watched this far, thank you so much, and stay tuned for the next one. Bye.